Hello, Moon to Moon. Welcome back. I'm pretty pumped about this episode. I'm going to be telling you my take on mystics, inviting you into mysticism with some storytelling that comes from my own hermitage, the hermitage window of my life where I was taking some fucking space for myself after my divorce and I found astrology. And I found out about the tarot and I found out about how fucking weirdly mystical and powerful I am. The central thesis that I'm proposing here is one you may have heard me speak on before if you're a longtime listener, which is that we have this picture of mystics as sort of non-corporeal, like they're leading they're living all in spirit, that they sort of transcend the human body and live in their personal encounters with the divine. Which doesn't really even feel true to me because when I think about mystics in history, I'm just like imagining these mystics like living in caves, taking shits out in the open, like living on the rock. Um like pretty earthly. That feels pretty earthly to me. But I'm really challenging kind of like a modern kind of spiritual guru where everything just gets enveloped in high vibe away from the body. It is not how I approach mysticism. So I'm inviting you into this. This understanding is very important to understanding my relationship to what I teach. My relationship to emergence astrology comes from this mystical perspective I'm going to be sharing with you now. So, a wild thing happened for me that I think is really important to understand is that my mystical path, me coming into astrology, realizing I have these channels that receive information from mystery, from mysterious places, and I'm bringing it through and then sharing it. A mystical life where, like, all day long, I'm in communication with mystery and tune in for the actions that I take in my day. And I feel myself to be a steward and a servant to all of that information. And those skill sets are incredible. And that's so much of what I'm teaching in the emergence astrology pathway. But at the same time that my mystical life was unfolding, two other paths were unfolding at the same time, and they're all braided together to me. One is my erotic pathway. It's truly essential to my story to understand how big a deal it is that I didn't have an orgasm until I was 39 years old. My whole erotic awakening into myself happened at the same time that the moon was talking to me, and I was learning about charts and pulling cards, learning how to hold ritual space, and growing rapidly in my skill and intuition, being able to see pretty extraordinary things, especially here, because I'm highly clairaudient. Meanwhile, I'm like having orgasms all the time because, I'm like a teenager here, discovering myself, discovering what turns me on, discovering how much fun it is to be with myself this way, and just really starting to like open into my a relationship to my body that was pleasure centered. And at the time, I wasn't letting anyone into that. I really kept that to myself for a while so that I could just be a person who knows myself that way. So I didn't need anybody else to facilitate anything for me. So by the time I started to have partnerships, I was very self sufficient in taking care of myself and seeking my own satisfaction. And that to me is part of my mysticism too, is trusting my availability to open and receive, right? Like open and receive. What would I like to have happen? Will I receive any information from spirit? Like will I be supported? Will I receive guidance? Same kind of doubt questions as will I have an orgasm? Everything just started to be like, of course, I'm going to be in communication with the other side. Of course, I'm going to have an orgasm. The question is, how would I like to get there? How would I like to get there? What would I like that experience to be like? And then, meanwhile, come 6 months or so later, I begin my entrepreneurial pathway. I have my first client, first paying client. And then the next one. I started my Instagram account, started a newsletter, began to have more and more clients, began to do horoscope writing, like rapidly growing in opportunities. And, with no background in that, money magically appeared for me before through my husband because I was in academia where I was paid like basically it couldn't even cover my childcare. So my work never had any value. I was taught that my work has no monetary value. That's what you learn when you're an adjunct teacher. That's what you learn when you're a TA. So I didn't know how to have value for my labor, but I did know something that I was practicing in my erotic life and in my mystical life, which was, of course, I'm going to open and receive. Of course, I'm going to put this out here and there's going to be a response. Of course. I like actually realizing this in real time that I think that my mystical experience and my erotic experiences facilitated so much of my entrepreneurial trust and my entrepreneurial just like giving myself permission, right? Because you will never have an orgasm unless you give yourself permission to have one. I know this. Nobody knows this one better than me. You will never be satisfied unless you agree to be satisfied. You will never have an orgasm unless you agree to have one. So when I was entering my entrepreneurial life, it was like, I'm never going to grow in my business unless I agree that that is what I want. I want to grow in my business. And so thus I'm going to get into that happening. And along the way, I know I'm going to get what I want. I mean, that is not a belief pattern that I had in me from younger. It was my mysticism that facilitated that. I had a teacher and a weekly group, but I was going after those skill sets every day, multiple times a day. I would do hours at my altar, hours at my altar, listening, asking questions and listening, calling things in, moving energy around. I mean, I took those skills and was like playing like the same way I was playing with my vibrator. It was just like, I'm not asking for permission to become a badass at this. I mean, just taking it and going, just like, thanks for the teachings. I am going. I am like going to run with this. I'm going to go get my own insights. I bet I could make up my own meditations. Learning about the tarot. I bet I could make up my own spreads. Like such wild permissioning. My mystical life, like, whoa, the way it's helped me with my body, the way it's helped me with this earthly life, the way it's helped me with exchanging with other humans where money is involved. And you have something you desire, and you'd like to have a lot of fun on your way there, and you're pretty sure you're going to get what you want. You have to agree to be satisfied, though, you know? You have to agree. You have to agree. And to agree, you have to have trust. Trust is the missing piece for everyone that I support. And for me too, because there's always limits to what we can trust. Like I've had Mary Greasy on many times. Mary Greasy is one of my mentors. She's an incredible, like wildly talented medium and psychic. And she'll tell you all about her doubt. She'll tell you all about the limits of her trust because it's just a part of being a human and a part of being a magical person and being part of an intuitive person is like, because there is no party that's going to give you permission to do it. And there is no outside authority that's going to validate for you that you did have that download, that you did see that, you did hear that, you did know that. This is why it's so fucking empowering, is because the only person who can validate it for you is you. My favorite thing about my teacher, Deborah Cremens, my first teacher, is she would not allow me to do golden student with her. Oh, I tried. Come on, Deborah. Admit it. I'm really good at this. I just wanted her to just admit it, Deborah. I've got the touch, I've got the magic. She refused. She refused and she refused and she refused until I finally just like broke down into my getting it. Like, oh, her refusing is part of her love for me. Her refusing is part of her care for me. Her refusing is protecting my magic. Is such an important thing for a teacher in these arts. We can't be playing at the validation of the teacher. When you are learning to give yourself permission, when you are learning to do it for yourself, just like hold that space. We teachers, we must hold the space without getting hooked into that. Because the student wants to, though them wanting that is their inner child feeling unsafe. It's not the mystical part of them that's going to be after all these cool gifts. And yeah. So thank goodness she didn't do that. Thanks goodness I didn't have that. Mystics, they're humans too. We're all human and we're highly, highly freaking magical. Highly freaking magical. Our understanding of how magical we are, I'm talking about you, is going to be the limits of your trust. And the only way that you can start to trust yourself is if you practice. What do we need for practice? We need a safe container. Like the container doesn't feel safe because you're never activated, you're never triggered. You like everybody all exactly the same. Nobody ever says anything that bothers you. You love everything about your teacher. No, that's not what makes a safe space. It's a felt sense for there is an integrity here. There's a felt sense for I feel that I can be myself here. I feel that if I share like what's true for me, that this is a place that I can do that. And I'm not going to be like kicked out or made to feel weird for just sharing who I am. That's very important to me. Safe container, you need a container to lean back into. So it's the community, but it's also the structure of the curriculum providing like that sense of like, I understand the intelligence of how this is unfolding. We need to understand this kind of essential intelligence. It's not super logical necessarily, although you may find that you love the logic of my structures. But it's also just like your sense for my nervous system. And like, you just have this feeling that like you are going to be able to drop into more trust with yourself because of something about the frequency that I emit. And you feel it through my voice. And if you've been in my containers before, you may also have evidence, right? But everybody has to go in a first time without evidence. Moon to Moon, the podcast, is a great way for you to kind of test that out. But Moon to Moon is not contained. You see, the Moon to Moon, the podcast is uncontained. It's a podcast. It's not a container. It's not a container. So it cannot hold what I'm talking about. So I'm sure you receive a lot from this podcast. And at some point, it may become very exciting for you to actually commit to a container because the containers, you need a container to hold the transformation. It's like a chrysalis for the butterfly situation. And my favorite example of this that I got to understand in real life for myself was that I, in 2018, was obsessed with the podcast Tarot for the Wild Soul by Lindsay Mack. I listened to every episode. She was really the only teacher I had. I ended up getting other books, but by then I was like really in my practice that I got from then taking Tarot for the Wild Soul, the class. So the class was like 8 weeks back then. I don't know how long it is anymore. I don't know if it's anything like it was then, but for me, I was shocked at how much I transformed by committing to her class and being in the class because she was doing episodes on each card that were like an hour long. And in the class, it was like a 15-minute video per episode. So you're getting more information in the podcast. But the podcast wasn't providing transformation, it was only providing information, which is like super helpful. And like, it's not that it lacks transformative qualities, but if you're interested in like magic, we have to invest into a container because we need a container for magic to happen and for transformation. Magic is transformation. Transformation is magic because magic is change. So, yeah. So one of the big things that I love to share is over time, I just started to realize like what's going on under my mystic's robe. You know, those mystics, they wear robes, like Gandalf wears a robe. Merlin wears a robe. I'll tell you what I discovered under my mystic's robe is my big dick. I started to just realize like I am super hybrid in every way. I began to realize that I have chicken feet. I can lay eggs. I can tear flesh. I have horns growing out of my head. Like I am a multi-creature woman. I am part vulture. I can channel angels through my body. Like I can do all kinds of things. I am hybrid. I am so much more than I thought I was. All those categories, like I can't even remember what categories I used to belong to because my multitudes became so big that it's like I'm an undefinable creature. This is what my mysticism gave me because the throb of my life, the throb of my erotic life, the throb of life force got activated so big with the intuitive practices that were coming through. This throb is just the big dick and the big dick that's pointing the way to like, this is what I want. This is what I'm going to go after. This is what I'm insisting upon. This is what I want to hump. Is it humpable? You may know that I say that. If it's not humpable, it's a no. Huge, huge liberation. I mean, and I mean this like, I feel to me, in terms of pronouns, full respect for all pronouns. I'm very like connected to my theyness. But the truth is, I feel like the most liberating thing for me in this lifetime is she, her. That's the liberation for me. I think that I've been a man many times. Yeah, I definitely have been a man many, many times. And I'm very in touch with my masculine. I was not in touch with my masculine until I began intuitive healing in my mystical life. And, you know, these deep relationships with Mars, especially, um, they just can move through my body however they want to. I'm not limited by my age, by my shape, by my face. My mystical life shows me how shapeshifting I am while always staying me. And that includes my human self that has a past. It includes my human self that is always every age I've ever been here right now. Every age I've ever been is present in the room right now. My lineage blood's in the room. My past lives are always in the room. These are all with me all the time. So my mystical life and my erotic life help me get very connected to present time, which is the only place that I can be everything at once and also myself, and to create from my fullness, which is pretty fucking amazing. It's extremely powerful feeling to feel that connected to everything. So, this hybridity I loved hearing about from students that were finishing up year one and year two recently, because here's the thing, y'all. I can't stand over my students and be like, so are you feeling hybrid yet? How's the hybridity going? Have you grown your chicken feet? Like, I have to just surrender that process to you and provide what you need, which is the structural container type things. My Capricorn moon's very happy to do that, to provide all of that and then let the teachings flow through, which is more from my Pisces, my Mars and Cancer too, so that you can like receive through the channel, the container, and then you're in your own space doing your thing. So the degree that you transform an emergence astrology pathway is going to be the degree to which you agree to. Oh my God, I got to write that down. The degree, let's say it again, to which you transform in emergence astrology is the degree to which you agree to. And I will even teach you abilities to notice where you don't agree to and unshaming that. It's important to not push these things. You have to be able to bring your doubter along with you. You just get skilled at holding it in the room while you're doing high magic, you know? And that's how I can do a lot of things off script that like might, yeah, when I taught art history, I basically had everything like word for word on sheets of paper because I was so afraid of fucking it up. I was just like terrified that I would freeze in front of all these students and then not know what I was talking about. And I don't have that problem now. Well, one is because in art history you have actual like dates you have to remember and like biographical details, and my Piscean Mercury doesn't find that like super important when we're talking about the essence of the work of art, but I was pretty good at date spreads, just to be clear, because some of that really does matter. Like 1870s Paris is very different than 1880s Paris, and I really appreciate those distinctions. When you get into the minutia, the dates just matter more and more. But with with what I share here, it's coming from a place inside of me that, from a mystical perspective, I already know what I'm going to say, even though when I press record, another part of me doesn't know what I'm going to say. Do you feel me? Because from a multidimensional perspective, and hey, if this is hard for you to imagine, we're going to go slow. So you let this in to the degree that you have trust, to the degree that you agree to it, you know? But from a multidimensional perspective, that definitely, as we move along through the years, you'll be experiencing from a dimensional perspective. You have future selves who are giving you lots of information to help you with what you're currently holding. And the more you trust all of this multidimensional magic with your chicken feet and your bat wings and your fangs and the horns growing out of your head, the more you understand this intuitively, you trust it, the more you can do and not be exhausted because you're not hustling. You're not like striving and exhausting yourself because you're just like, doo doo doo, my future self is handling that. Doo doo doo. Okay, can you pass me that info now? And no, my younger self would have found this really hard to believe and be like, she's full of shit. And it's okay. At some level, I have parts of me that think I'm full of shit. This is all fine, you know? Like letting yourself be super contradictory and paradoxical makes you bigger. Would you like to take up more space in this world? Would you like to feel comfortable sharing your voice louder? Like this is how you get bigger, is you get more contradictory, paradoxical, hybrid, multidimensional, and it's very weird. It's very erotic. It's very erotic. Because if you want to get into pulsing life, like we have, you know, ingrown hairs and we have broken fingernails and we have lipstick on our teeth and we have, secretions. So getting into life of the mystic also is like getting into the gnarly cool shit about being stinky goats, you know? And God, well, fuck, what a liberation for a girl who's like conditioned in a southern atmosphere where you have to sit certain ways, you know? I mean, the etiquette that was conditioned into me. There's vestiges. And some of it I love, paradoxically. So, hey, If you love ritual, there's aspects to etiquette that feel very nice, like when it comes to just like, and then we do it like this, and then we do it like this, and then it goes like this. There's an aspect to that flow that I love. That's why I loved being an Episcopalian. I grew up Presbyterian. And then after my stint at advertising for 8 months, when I crossed paths with Matt Bull, thank God that happened. Of course it did, though. Duh. Our future selves completely arranged it. Um, I worked for 2 years teaching seventh and eighth grade at this school in Dallas here called Parish Episcopal. And we had to go to chapel every day. And I was really dreading it. Just like chapel. And then I ended up loving it because it just felt so good to be. It was like a 12th house experience for me for 20 minutes, just like sit and pray and feel connected. That was so easy for me. It felt so good. And then when my girls were very small, my ex didn't want to go with me. And I took them for years every single Sunday to Episcopalian church because Episcopalian services are very ritualized. Like, and now we do this, and now we kneel, and now we do the chant, and now we go up for Eucharist. It's just like, ah, yes. Yes, 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 yes. I loved being an Episcopalian Christian for the rituals. It's a whole other story, but I had to leave when I realized that the church was run by human beings who have very different opinions than I do, starting with opinions about gay marriage. And I've had to make the very awful, sad choice to quit going there. And it was so sad for us, me and my daughters. And yeah, we've been having lots of really beautiful conversations about that lately that I've just been really appreciating because it actually was like very, very special to them. They now say, even though for a lot of it's very pre-memory, we stopped going when they were probably like 7 and 9. Um, but they've started going to Episcopalian churches to try them out, and to them they said it feels like home, and it's not the same church. It's the rituals, and just like, oh, yeah, it makes me very happy that that was what the weaving was for them, is just the idea of feeling home, feeling safe, feeling like a place to go away from the rest of your life where you were loved and where you can count on a particular like experience of quiet and contemplation and prayer. It's just so great. So, um, yeah. hmm Yeah. So the, um, what I still wanted to share with you is that it's through mysticism and the mystical perceptions that I realized that astrology, the way it's taught, has like a front side, um, what I call the this side, which is like everything that we've been taught. It's like the body of knowledge that is ever growing. Every time a book comes out, we're adding to the this side of astrology. My book is now on the this side of astrology. But in many ways, what's written in there came from the that side, which is your intuitive personal gnosis with your relationship to mystery. And as it comes through, you're now coming into a sense of astrology as bigger than what you've been told, bigger than what you've learned so far. And in this way, you're adding to the body of knowledge when you share that with even your classmates. Even if you never want to give readings as a career, even if you never want to be a professional astrologer and you're really here for like personal growth, you sharing your voice in class with each other is you expanding the body of understanding of astrology for your classmates. And then that lives now in their body. Do you feel that? So then astrology becomes bigger, which is as it should be to me, because there is no way that we can fathom mystery all at once. It is bigger than we think it is. It is, of course it is, because it's part of mystery. No one can ever know everything about astrology because huge swaths of it are unknown to us and always will be. So you validate yourself, you give yourself permission, which is going to heal you across your life. You give yourself permission to go find out what of mystery wants to talk to you. Do you see how healing that is? Astrology has a this side and a that side. Emergence astrology is with both. So the final thing I wanted to share with you today that came through for the hermitage of emergence astrology is that when I was dreaming of it, it just kind of came through in a moment of talking to my business coach, Aislinn. She was asking me like, what do you want to do, basically? And I just kind of felt myself switch into my transmission voice, or like that state of being of transmission. And I was like, well, you see, it begins with a hermitage. It begins with a hermitage. So you can find out how much more you are with the space in the dark. And I began to just sense this. Yes, yes. And it will be 9 months. It will be 9 months. And then the arrival to one another after the hermitage will be like the birth. We're making babies. We're making babies. We're making babies. And I had this song come in. Give me those belly out babies. Give me those gap tooth babies. Give me those sticky haired babies. It was only later that I realized I was absolutely describing my children, especially my second child, because she had big gap teeth. She was the funniest toddler. And I just loved, they were always just in their diapers, just like they both had big bellies. And I just thought they were so cool. Just like, the freedom, like, just like belly out babies, just like got my gap teeth. She always had the stuff in her hair. And I was always just so delighted. It was like, damn, the audacity. But what I was picturing here, what I was feeling for my students, for the hermits of year one, that you're greeting this self that's like, damn. If you saw yourself, if today you could see yourself at the end of the hermitage, you'd be like, damn, the audacity. Whoa. Oh, like, give me some of that. Yes, please. But Yeah, that's what happens. We're making babies. We're making babies in the hermitage. So if you are listening on the day that this is coming out, or the day after, this is the end of the promo. The promo for the Emergence Astrology Pathway. We're only open once a year. If you just missed it, reach out to my team. You can catch up. But technically, the doors are closed because we're getting going here. And I'm not going to keep pulling you in because you either heard the call or you didn't. Did you agree to it or did you not agree to it? Got to agree. We've got to agree to transformation. We agree to it. We agree to be pleased with ourselves and how we transform. But the thing about babies is you can't tell the divine what baby you want. You can't be like, I want them to be like this and I want them to look like this and I want them to be this when they grow up. And some people may have had caregivers that were like that. But babies are mysteries, you know? Babies are mysteries. And being a mother, being a parent is one constant, it's just constant surrender. It's just surrender, 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 surrender. Pulled the hangman for this call. It's just surrender. You can't come in and be like, Britten, here's the deal. At the end of 9 months, I want to be like this and I want it to be like this. And this is who I want to be at the end of 9 months. You cannot do that. You can't do that. Or if you do that, you're not surrendering. You have to surrender. That's the magic. Right? In surrender is a stance among stances. You'll have parts of you that don't like surrendering, and then you have parts that love it. They can't wait to be surprised. They can't wait to be amazed. And so again, it's like you have to agree to surrender at some level because I am not promising who you're going to be. The more you agree to surrender, the wilder it's going to get, the weirder it's going to get, the more hybrid you're going to get. And all of that means the bigger you're going to get, the vaster you're going to get. So, may I suggest surrendering? You hold one, here's two things you hold in each hand, okay? You surrender the outcome in one hand, and in the other hand, you show up to the practices and you get into it. Get into it. Make it yours. Get after it. Be hungry for it. That is the essence of successful entrepreneurship right there. The paths all connect. Successful entrepreneurship is get after it, get into it, love the process. And on the other hand, surrender that it goes exactly as you insist that it has to be. Just be available to the best outcomes, being amazed. Oh my God, I didn't know it was going to be like that. But you have to hold both in one in each hand, which is an art and a skill that you practice. And you get better at it the more you practice. So that is like top magic skill to practice the rest of your life. Nobody's expecting you to be excellent when you're at the beginning. That's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. I'm not doing that in here. If you put those expectations on yourself, that's your business. But I don't expect anybody to be knowing everything that we're doing at the front end. Like you're undergoing a process and everybody's going to be moving through it their own pace, their own way. And if you want it to be highly transformational and super duper duper magical, then agree to it being highly transformational and magical. show up to as much of the stuff as possible and surrender what outcomes look like. Just something bigger than you. So fun. Thank you so much. If you're loving Moon to Moon, please leave a review. That would be so meaningful and supportive to me, but also to future people who will see your review and be like, oh, okay, I will try it out. Your review matters big time. And yeah, if you are in Spotify, you can leave a comment too. Let me know how this landed. What do you think about my big dick? Did I just say that? All right. Um, that's my final request is if you're feeling the call, I hope you'll come through. I'd love to see you, support you, create this space for all of this magic to unfold for you, and love to have your voice in our community here. Thank you and cheers.